Welcome to this week's Sunday morning rant. And unfortunately, this week's Sunday morning rant is rather sad. And it's sad because it concerns a company that I've used for many years and have been using recently while I've been putting this stuff together and all the other bits in this room and whatever. So it's kind of sad that they've gone bust. Now, I've been using StudioSpares for over 20 years. I've probably been using them for longer than that, but I can definitely remember going into StudioSpares when I used to work in London. I used to get on the tube and pop into their shop, and if I needed cables, it was easy just to pop in there and pick a cable up for whatever I was doing. And I'm pretty sure I used them before over 20 years, but I can definitely remember points around the 20-year mark where I would pop over to where their shop was at lunchtime from wherever I was working, because it was a sort of a 20-minute tube ride, if you like. And this was kind of while the internet was still becoming an e-commerce platform, really. It hadn't quite matured into sort of the platforms that we have now and the online shops that we have now and the online fulfillment that we have now. It was when shops were still selling goods and they could still make a profit at selling goods as well. And as you know, I've been building this place for the last couple of months, and as I say, it's taken me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take me for many reasons. Buying this cabinet actually put me back some way because that took 6 weeks to build. I'm not unhappy it took 6 weeks to build, but that was kind of the time frame from the point I ordered it to the point it arrived was roughly around 6 weeks. This building this place has done is kind of made me rationalise how I cable my studio. Now my studio has always been cabled by me, and it's cabled to my standards, which might not meet some of you pro guy standards out there, but it's cabled to my standards and it works. And I can tell when things are not working because I know how it's been cabled. And I've been meticulously, as I've been cabling it and putting things together, recording how it's all set up, so that for me it becomes very easy. And I haven't got it at the moment, but I will have a laminated set of rules that says how all the patch panels have been put together and what goes where, so that I can easily patch both MIDI, audio and data from A to B relatively easily. So what I've been doing since probably, I don't know, mid-August, I suppose, is I kind of was building up, as I was thinking this stuff through, a cart of cables that I needed for this next inversion of the studio, if you like. And I went on to StudioSpares thinking, right, I've now got some time because I've been away working, etc, etc. So I thought to myself, this weekend I've got some time. What I'll do is I'll finish. I'll get all the cables in this week, because StudioSpares normally is a 48-hour delivery time slot. So I thought over the weekend last weekend I'd log on and I'd order all the parts that I'd put into my bag or cart. Cart is the proper word, isn't it? It needs to go into my cart. Anyway, so I thought I'd log on to my cart and I'd order them so that they were here for this weekend and I could finish doing that. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So as you can guess, I logged onto the StudioSpares website with great anticipation, got the credit card out and got a service unavailable message from the website. Basically saying service unavailable, down for maintenance was the message actually that was on the StudioSpares website. So I thought, oh, okay, down for maintenance. Companies often take their websites down for maintenance on a Saturday or Sunday. My bank does it on a sort of twice a year, so there's going to be a service interruption on a Saturday or a Sunday, but they do essential maintenance. So, you know, I kind of thought, well, you know, it's fairly standard stuff, didn't think anything more about it. Forgot about it until Monday morning, logged on Monday morning, still unavailable. So, I thought to myself, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So then I thought, well, has something actually happened to StudioSpares? So I did what everybody does. I fired off a Google search. I did a Google. And to see basically if anyone else was wondering what had happened to StudioSpares. And lo and behold, I got a couple of articles that came back saying that the website had basically been off since before the weekend and it hadn't come back up. And then there were a couple more articles saying that StudioSpares had gone into liquidation or voluntary liquidation. So that is not Chapter 11 for you guys in America, which is kind of administration over here. But it's actually the company has gone bust. Which basically means they've ceased trading. So the likelihood of the website coming back up, and I did check again this morning, and it's still saying service unavailable. So that was really interesting. Then I read some more articles, and there was another article that said there'd been some sort of takeover activity of StudioSpares, and that takeover activity had gone kind of wrong, and it basically had meant that the company could no longer trade after the takeover activity. So whether StudioSpares were trying to take over someone else or someone else was trying to inject capital into StudioSpares by taking them over, I don't know. But okay, they've gone bust. So what evidence do I have that they've actually gone bust? Well, if you go onto Reddit and type in the word StudioSpares, you'll get a couple of hits on there as well. And in one of the Reddit posts, there is a link to an article in the London Gazette. Now, the way that insolvency works in the UK is that you have to publish letters to interested parties in a reputable publication. And in the UK, that publication is defined basically as the London Gazette. I don't know whether it's written into statute, but basically if a company goes bust or a company is being wound up or a company goes into administration, Chapter 11, then the directors and the administrators must publish notices in a reputable publication. And as I say, in the UK, that has become the de facto has become, it is the London Gazette, a publication called the London Gazette. So, there is a link on Reddit to a London Gazette post, which was a couple of days ago, and that London Gazette post says that the creditors are being asked to attend a meeting. So a meeting of the creditors is being held at a location in London on the 1st of October. So in a couple of days' time, the creditors will be hauled into a room. At that point, the directors and the administrators or the liquidators will effectively set out the story of the company and why it ceased trading. And I suspect the reason why it ceased trading is because its cash flow, it no longer has sufficient assets to meet its liabilities. That's normally the way these things work. And I'm an accountant by trade, so I did do insolvency a long time ago. But I think this is a really, really sad day. As I said, I've been using this company for over 20 years. They made good quality cables at a reasonable price point. And they made all kinds of cables. And that was kind of the beauty of StudioSpares. They made your standard sort of tip ring sleeve, tip ring type cables, which is what most musicians know about and plug into the back of their instruments. They made MIDI cables. In fact, most of the MIDI cables in my studio has come from StudioSpares, and it's StudioSpares' own brand. They made power cords. They made wiring looms for many standard mixer platforms. They made wiring looms for stage work and live work. They also made interesting cables. So cables that you might not think you need, but you do need. And I'll give you an example as he walks off camera. So this is one of my favourite cables. This one. This is one end. You've got two tip sleeves. Sorry, tip rings. Boom, boom. Okay, so that is, sorry, tip sleeves, TS. Anyway, whichever way around, left and right channels. So that allows me to just plug straight into the patch panel. And on the other end is a mini jack, like so, which allows me to plug into things like an iPad or an iPod. For those of you that remember an iPod, I still have an iPod, which I use occasionally. But it allows me to plug into those sort of devices, or plug into a computer, or plug into something else. Really, really versatile cable. That is a StudioSpares cable. So I'll pop that down there. They did patch leads. I've got a whole box of patch leads for my MIDI and my audio. I haven't got enough. I was going to, actually, that was one of the things that was in the cart, was more patch cables. So I haven't got enough of those. I know I haven't got enough of those for what I want to do. But they did, as I say, they did all these weird, some weird cables with a certain connector at one end to another connector at another end, and you never knew you needed them until you, of course, you buy a piece of equipment that has that particular cable. One of the things they did is, say, power cords. So they did power cords that had IC9 connectors on them, and you sit there thinking, well, why do you need an IC9 connector? Well, actually, a lot of European equipment, if you've bought, like me, some of my equipment has come from Europe, because even though Europe is 240, 230, 240 volts, 50 hertz AC, the actual connectors that go in the back of the equipment, in some instances that were sold in Europe, is not your IC13, IC14, IEC13, IEC14 connectors. It was an IEC9, IEC10 connector. And of course I bought the piece of equipment and I haven't swapped it over, but what I've done is bought, for those instances, a couple of IC9, IC10 cables that allow me to use it in the studio. As I say, there's no issue on voltage or step up, step down transformers like there would be for buying equipment from the Far East, i.e. Japan, or the US, which is, of course, is 100 volts and 110 volts respectively. So, or 120 volts, or whatever. So they did that. That was really, really useful. They weren't cheap, I might add, but they kind of made them themselves. The other thing they did is they made testing kits. And I actually got the testing, one of my testing tools, out of storage when I was putting this place together. And I have been using this thing pretty much solidly for the last couple of months, because it allows me to test at the top there. So this tool comes to pieces. It's got two bits to it, left and a right bit. One sends a pulse, one receives a pulse. Okay, and it allows me to test the continuity of cables. So every time I've put a cable into the wiring loom here, I've been testing it to make sure that it has continuity. So normal cables go in, where is it? The bottom bit, that's the TRS socket, or TS socket, swaps itself. MIDI cables go in that bit there, so I can test the MIDI cable continuity. which is really useful. I test all the MIDI cables that have been put in. XLR cables are on the front there. And if I look at the bottom here, you will see RJ45 cables, which have become invariable when I've been running data supplies into here. So I can have one attached to the cable in here while I've been tracing through the cable into other areas of the house, because this Hobbit hut, as I've called it, which is Studio A, actually is hardwired to the mains router. So I don't have to worry about Wi-Fi in here. Everything in here can run, it can run Wi-Fi as well, there's Wi-Fi in here, but it also can run hardwired from the mains router. So I effectively get a gigabit of internet into this space. But that's the sort of testing kit. They did various other testing kits. I've got another one from StudioSpares as well, floating around. I think that's still down at storage though. So they did that. That also allows you to test neutral connectors and speaker connectors and RJ11, which is the telephone stand, or was the telephone standard in the UK. Nobody really has a telephone anymore, but that was the standard. So they did that sort of stuff. Then they did keyboard stands and mic stands and the sort of stands I've got my lights on, those sort of stands. They did all that. Now, I wouldn't say the keyboard stands were the best in the world, but actually, you know what, for certain things, they were perfectly adequate for what you needed to do with them. They were cheaper than Quick Lock and probably about the same sort of standard as Quick Lock. Now, a lot of people don't like Quick Lock stands. I'm not a great fan of them myself. Although, having said that, this stand behind me happens to be Quick Lock and it's absolutely rock solid, which is really good. But a lot of Quick Locks, especially the X stands, are unstable. I think that's the word I used. Then, you know, another thing came from StudioSpares is when I was looking for the MIDI patch panels that I've got installed in here, I searched high and low for MIDI patch panels. And there was a period, probably about 10 years ago, where everybody stopped making them. And I rang StudioSpares up actually because I couldn't find them, and they said, we do know somebody who is making them and we're doing a deal with them. And lo and behold, they arrived on their website. Now, you can actually buy the MIDI patch panels direct from the manufacturer now. You never used to be able to, but you can buy direct from the manufacturer. And my friend UAP was inquiring about them the other day. So if you do want to know what the MIDI patch panels are, drop me a line on the channel, and I will definitely see if I can. Well, I'll give you the website address, and you can go and look at them. But those sort of things, and you know, you could buy, even though you can buy the patch panels I've got, you can buy them on the internet. You could also buy them from StudioSpares. So there was a whole raft of stuff. They sold MIDI effect units. They sold audio interfaces. In fact, everything you pretty much needed to get yourself up and running from a studio perspective, you could buy through StudioSpares. Wasn't great for live, as great for live work. They weren't really geared for that, but they were geared for all the sort of silly cables you needed to put something like this together. Yes, I can buy cables on Amazon. The problem with buying cables on Amazon is you can never tell the quality and the price point. And that's the bit that is very difficult. Is StudioSpares delivered you a product at a price point. It wasn't the cheapest in the world, but you knew it was a quality product. And that was more important to me than buying a cable that was cheap as chips and basically disintegrated after 2 or 3 uses. So if this insolvency really is true, then all I can say is rest in peace, StudioSpares. I, like many others who used your services, will sorely miss the quality of product that you used to produce. And on that note, I'm going to say live long and prosper, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.